Welcome back with a smiling face. Important note before starting, if you are a fan of audio stories, then our Patreon account is the best platform for you. Join us on Patreon for the best audiobooks ever. Coming Together Book 3. Episode 14. Chapter 38-45 of Book 3. When I woke as a cat, it was as if I hadn't done more than stumbled and fallen. I sprang up and kept running, pushed by the distant sound of Rafe's voice and pulled by that smell. Danger, that's what my gut said. It smelled like danger and I had to focus on this. Find the source of the threat before it found us. I tore through the woods, following that teasing scent. Running here was different. The forest was different. Not my rainforest, but thick deciduous woods, the ground heavy with vines and undergrowth. After I tripped a few times, I forced myself to slow down and find a path. Then I flew along it until the ground blurred beneath me. Maya! The voice came from in front of me and I skidded to a stop, panic rising. Maya! It came clearer now, accompanied by running footsteps, and I recognized those steps, just as I recognized the scent. My heart gave a little thud. A good thud. A relieved thud. Until Daniel stepped onto the path and everything Rafe said flooded back. I thought I saw you. Yes, I know, I'm supposed to be resting, but Ash snores even louder than you. He grinned. I had to take a walk. I looked at that grin and I heard Rafe's words. He's in love with you. But I didn't see love. Not the kind Rafe meant. I just saw Daniel with his open, infectious, happy to see you grin. Nothing else. Not in his smile. Not in his face. Not in his eyes. That was good. Corey was mistaken. Maybe there'd been a time when Daniel thought we could be more than friends, but then he got together with Serena and that changed. He might not have fallen in love with her, but he'd realized he didn't feel that way about me, either. Relief. That's what I should feel, looking into Daniel's face and seeing nothing more than friendship. So why didn't I? My stomach clenched. I turned to leap into the forest. Hey! Daniel said, jogging toward me. What's up? He paused, then scanned the woods. You're playing with Rafe? Is that it? I'm interfering. He tried for a smile, but there was something about no. There wasn't. It was just a smile. He stopped about a meter away. You guys out blowing off steam? I shook my head. The grin returned. Brighter? God, stop analyzing. But that's how it was going to be now, wasn't it? Analyzing. His feelings. My reactions. Maya. He hunkered down. Is everything okay? The scent wafted past again and I seized on that. I made a show of lifting my nose and sniffing. You smell something. He pushed to his feet, shoulders tightening as he scanned the forest. Someone's out there. Okay, let's deal with this. You lead. He said something more, but all I caught was that scent, wafting around me now, filling my head. Maya? What's? I bolted. As I raced through the forest, I told myself I was just following the scent. But the fact that it happened to lead me away from Daniel helped. Focus on this. This is real. This is important. The scent grew stronger. Dog? Human? No, it wasn't dog and it wasn't human. It was something in between. The answer hit me as the scent did, a full blast of it, as if my target was right in front. But all I saw was darkness. I'd plunged into a thick copse and I could make out the faint glow of a birch tree, but that was it. The rest was black. 2 eyes swung my way. Bright green eyes. Peering at me from the darkness. Then that darkness erupted. A massive form flew at me, black as midnight, green eyes glowing. And fangs. Huge white fangs, bearing down on me. I turned to run, but the beast was too close. It hit me in the side and knocked me down. Before I could scramble up, before I could even see what it was, the beast sprang. Teeth clenched my throat and pinned me to the ground. Derek. A girl's voice. The beast stiffened. Not a beast. A werewolf. He kept me pinned. He didn't clamp down harder, though, just held me there. What is that? The girl asked. Those green eyes shifted to her, his grip on my throat relaxing a fraction. I unsheathed my claws and swatted at his chest. It wasn't a hard swipe. Just enough to scratch him and just enough to startle him. He let go. I flew to my feet and twisted, backing up, showing him a hissing mouthful of my own sharp teeth. That's the girl stammered. I guess they aren't extinct around here after all. The clouds blew from the moon and light streamed down, and I finally saw what I was facing. It looked like a wolf. If wolves grew to 200 pounds. A massive black wolf with green eyes fixed on me, assessing, considering. Okay, the girl said. It's backing away. Everything's oh. I glanced over and she stopped short. She was a little younger than me. Tiny, with reddish blonde hair and blue eyes. I swore I could smell fear waft off her. The wolf smelled it, too, and bristled, growling at me. No, she said, then again, firmer. No. It's okay. Everything's okay. We'll just let it leave. The wolf growled again. The girl's voice rose. I said we'll let it leave, Derek. It's not attacking us and I don't want it getting hurt if we can help it. You, either. The werewolf Derek snorted and gave me a look that said he considered personal injury highly unlikely. My hackles rose and I drew back my lips. He seemed to take that as a challenge, shifting forward, almost swaggering, like a schoolyard bully, certain his smaller target will back down. I considered it. For the sake of making nice, I should retreat. Surrender. Submit. But that was weakness and everything in me rebelled at the thought. So I held my ground. Derek. The girl's voice was low, annoyed now, and it was almost comical when he shot her a sheepish look. He turned back to me. Considered. Took another slow step. No. The familiar shout hit with an equally familiar sonic boom of force. It knocked the werewolf off his feet. The girl let out a shriek and ran forward. Daniel raced through the trees. The wolf scrambled up and swung around on him. I sprang between them. I lowered my forequarters and let out a snarl, fur standing on end. That made the wolf stop. He stared at me. Then his gaze lifted to Daniel behind me. I snarled again. The cat, the girl said. Is not a cat, Daniel said. Like that's not a wolf. Why yes. I mean, no, he's a hybrid. Part wolf, part dog. He's a werewolf, Daniel cut in. And she's a skinwalker, another kind of shapeshifter. She. A friend of mine. Like he's a friend of yours. And I'm going to ask you to back him off. Can you do that, Chloe? The wolf's head shot up at the name. Chloe. The necromancer. That made sense. The other girl was a witch and would have tried a spell by now. So you understand me. Derek, right? Daniel moved up beside me as his voice took on that special tone. I'm going to ask you to take a step back. Maya will do the same. I'm sure she hasn't attacked you or tried to attack Chloe, so there's no threat here, right? The wolf snorted and looked at me. Don't even think about it, Daniel said, an edge creeping into his voice. You attack her? You attack both of us. The wolf snarled. They locked gazes. When it was clear neither was backing down, Chloe came forward and grabbed Derek by the scruff of the neck. Come on, she said. Please. Just step away. She looked at Daniel. You're on his territory, which is never good with a werewolf. Your friend Maya startled him, even if she didn't mean to. Plus he really doesn't like you knowing our names. Well, I do know them, which shouldn't come as that big a surprise. Do you really think a couple of kids with supernatural powers are going to accidentally stumble on you? We were at the house earlier. I'm sure Derek smelled us. We were waiting in the forest until morning to make contact, so we wouldn't spook you. I chuffed. Daniel shot a smile over at me. Yeah, that one didn't work out so well. All right, Chloe said. We're backing up. Right, Derek. He snorted, but took a step back. So did I. We both retreated a few more, until I was at the clearing's edge. I don't suppose you remember where you left your clothing, Daniel murmured to me. Chloe gave a soft laugh. That's always a problem, isn't it? Okay then. You two go find that. We'll meet you here. Hopefully everyone will be in human form. A wry smile. Though I'll warn you, he's not a whole lot more pleasant that way. At least as a wolf, he can't talk. The wolf growled, but she only laughed and gave him a pat, then tugged him away as we went to retrieve my clothing. 39. As had happened before, after I'd passed out, I'd seemed to sleep undress, which was handy. So my clothing was where I'd left it, still intact. When I stepped out from my hiding spot, Daniel rose and came over to me. You didn't get bitten or anything, did you? I shook my head. He exhaled. Good. I was worried. I don't know if that's how you really do become a werewolf. He paused. It could be kind of cool, though. A werewolf and skinwalker hybrid. Time to shift? You pick your form. He grinned and I managed a soft laugh. My luck, it'd be a mix of the two. A shaggy, brown monster with retractable claws and an irresistible urge to chase sticks. As long as it's not an irresistible urge to hump legs and sniff crotches. I laughed again, a real one now. This is why I'll stick with feline, thank you. I'm glad you're okay. Seeing you facing off with that monster was scary enough. I can't imagine what it was like to be the one facing off with him. He shook his head. We need to have a little chat with your brother about werewolves before he decides to challenge one. Nah. I say we let him try. Take his ego down a notch or two. We both laughed and I looked at him, and I felt. Okay. I looked at his expression and listened to his laugh and I saw nothing more than I'd always seen. My friend. My best friend. Everything all right? Daniel asked. I smiled up at him. We should hurry back and talk to them, and hope the others stay sleeping for a while. Rafe's looking after that. I looked up. I saw him while you were shifting back. We talked. He agreed to make sure the others stay put if they wake up. You and I will handle this first encounter. He seemed cool with that. No, he probably wasn't cool with it at all. I didn't care. Well, yes, I did, but I didn't want to. Even if Rafe hadn't ruined my friendship with Daniel, he'd tried. He was supposed to care about me. That wasn't something you did to someone you cared about. You guys had a fight? Daniel asked. I nodded. Lousy timing, I know. Sorry. I'm sure the timing has a lot to do with it. Everyone's on edge. Whatever it was, he seemed sorry. He always is, I muttered before I could stop myself. I shook my head. We'll deal with it. At a much more suitable time. He really does like you, Maya. He fell from a helicopter for you. His voice dropped, his tone almost wistful. I looked up to see his expression, then quickly yanked my gaze away. Don't analyze. Do not analyze. I won't do this. You, Rafe. We'd better go, I said. Before they get tired of waiting. I instinctively knew where we'd left Chloe and Derek. When we drew close, I could hear Chloe talking just above a whisper. How many? She asked. She paused, as if waiting for a reply. I didn't hear Derek's response, but then she said, and they're all teens? No adults. Still no answer, but again she responded as if there'd been one. We stepped past a clump of bushes and I saw them ahead, sitting at the foot of a huge oak. Chloe had her knees pulled up, one arm wrapped around them. Her other hand was entwined with Derek's. He leaned back against the tree, slumping, as if it was holding him up. His face glowed with sweat and his eyes were closed. When I'd seen Derek in wolf form, I figured werewolves grew when they shifted, like the ones in movies. They didn't. He was really that big. Even slumped, he was more than a head taller than Chloe. A huge football player of a guy. Beside me, Daniel whispered, I was going to tell him off for bullying you. But I'm having second thoughts. I smiled at him. I don't blame you. Despite his size, Derek was obviously no older than us. His cheeks were dotted with mild acne and I could see the ghosts of fading pox, as if it had been much worse not too long ago. Dark hair tumbled into his eyes as he rested with his head bent forward. Anything else? Chloe whispered. I realized she wasn't talking to Derek. She was looking up. But there was no one there. Ghost? Daniel murmured. I tried not to shiver. I cleared my throat so we wouldn't surprise them. Chloe still jumped a little, but Derek's head only lifted, eyes snapping open, hand tightening around Chloe's. He got to his feet, inadvertently tugging her up with him. She murmured something and he let go of her hand but stepped in front of her. She sighed, pushed him aside, and came forward with her hand extended. When she saw me step into the moonlit clearing, she hesitated, but found her smile quickly and reached for my hand. Maya, is it? She said. I shook it. It is. And this is Daniel. Daniel shook her hand. Derek just stood there, until Chloe prodded him and he shook our hands not without a grumble, though, a low one, almost like a growl. I'm sorry I startled you, I said. The startling had definitely gone both ways, but from the look on Derek's face, I figured the apology was a good idea. Like Daniel said, we went to the house earlier, and when you weren't there, we decided to wait out here until morning. It's not just you two, Derek said. There are others. We know that. A ghost told Chloe, right? I said. She hesitated, then nodded. A friend of ours. Liz. Liz. Cold fingers touched the back of my neck, as if I was feeling the ghost herself. Elizabeth Delaney. Derek stiffened and I hurried on. I saw her name in some papers the Edison Group had. I noticed because we have the same last name. I'm Maya Delaney. Chloe looked sharply to the side, as if the ghost was still there and had said something. There's no relation, I said. I'm adopted, for one thing, and it seemed to just be a coincidence, but I noticed the name and they said she was dead, so I trailed off. Chloe was still looking to the side. Looking at her friend. Her dead friend. The Edison group had murdered this girl and now I was going to suggest everyone just try to get along? Negotiate with the cabals? My gut sank. Daniel took over. There are 4 more of us. We're all Project Phoenix subjects. They're in a clearing over there. He pointed. 3 of them are sleeping and don't know what's going on, but the 4th Rafe is standing guard to make sure they don't interrupt while we're talking. Is that okay? Chloe seemed ready to say it was fine, but Derek cut in. What are their powers? A lot of skinwalkers, Daniel said. Maya's brother is one and so is Rafe. Neither has shifted yet. Corey's a Selene. Haley's a Xana. I'm a Benandanti. Derek shook his head. None of that means anything to me. Not surprising, considering we're resurrected extinct supernatural types. That's what Project Phoenix is. But if you're uncomfortable talking here, we could go inside, where you guys have the advantage of numbers. Derek bristled, as if Daniel had just announced plans for an invasion. No. We talk here. Chloe, don't even suggest I go inside, she said, lowering herself to the ground. Everyone sit. Let's talk. We told them about Salmon Creek and how we'd been raised. Then I explained about Serena and how that led to the whole cover-up unraveling. But they didn't kill her, I said. I know that happened in your experiment, but it didn't in ours. Yet, Derek said. Just wait until things start going wrong. They have gone wrong. But I think whatever happened to you guys was different. Different people were involved, for one thing. Derek snorted. He wasn't buying that, but I was relieved to see that Chloe seemed to be considering it. Do you know who the Nasts are? I asked. It's a cabal, Chloe said. Like the St. Clouds, only bigger. And, well, nastier. A small smile at the play on words. They kidnapped my dad, Derek said. Held him captive for months, leaving my brother and me on our own, which is how our problems started. So they hated the Nasts. With very good reason. Great. I continued with our story: the fire, the kidnapping, the long trip home, our deaths. The more I talked, the more I really understood how ridiculous our solution was going to seem. Negotiate with the people who'd done all this to us? How could we even consider it? Yet given the alternative, how could we not consider it? When I faltered, Daniel would reach over and squeeze my hand. Just a reassuring gesture. But Chloe and Derek noticed, and it was as if I could hear them mentally processing the information, drawing the same conclusion that Ash had, that Daniel was my boyfriend. Did it really look that way? I mentally cursed Rafe some more before pushing on with my story. So my biological father helped us escape and sent us here, to you guys, I said as I concluded. Derek peered at me, brow furrowed. How did he know we were here? That's what we came to warn you about. He got the information from someone who works for the St. Clouds. They know exactly where you are. Derek scrambled up so fast his legs tangled and he nearly went down again. What? Chloe was on her feet, too, eyes bright with alarm. They know. We rose and Daniel put out his hands. It's okay. Well, not really okay, obviously, but it's nothing new. They've known for a few months. And you sat there, chatting away, without saying anything. Derek stepped toward Daniel, looming over him. Daniel stood his ground. Like I said, it's not an emergency. If you run in the middle of the night, it might be. Considering they've got a tracking device on your van. Derek didn't seem to hear him, just peered into the forest, braced for attack. Where are your friends? He said. Over, Daniel began, pointing. Take us to them. Now. We ran to the others. It was clear Derek wasn't accepting a leisurely stroll. I took the lead so this huge guy wouldn't come barreling down on them. That wasn't the way anyone needed to wake up. It was still chaos. Derek barked orders. Chloe tried to calm him. When he didn't listen, I snapped that he wasn't helping matters. He snapped back. Ash jumped to my defense, snarling like an alley cat. Daniel intervened to mediate. Derek turned on him. Corey rushed to Daniel's side, fists ready. Rafe braced to join in if a fight broke out. It was fun. Eventually Chloe, Daniel, and I got everyone calmed down enough to grab our stuff and head to the house. 40. Derek banged through the side door, leaving us on the porch. Dad, he shouted, loud enough to make my ears ring. Dad! You need to get down here. Chloe held open the door and whispered to me, I could say he's not always like this, but I'd be lying. She ushered us all in. I heard footsteps on the stairs and looked up to see a man in jeans, pulling on a t-shirt as he hurried down. He was about my dad's age, Daniel's height, and slender. Kid B, Derek's adoptive father. Kid's son was coming down behind him. He looked like his father, except for his light brown hair. Simon B. Hey, bro, Simon called sleepily. What's? He stopped. His gaze traveled over the kids crowding into his hall and he gave a sharp shake of his head. Apparently, we have visitors, he said. I gotta hear this one. A woman appeared at the top of the stairs. A petite blonde, pulling her robe tight. Lauren Fellows. Chloe's aunt. The doctor who'd worked with the Edison Group. A girl pushed past her. Taller than Dr. Fellows, with short dark hair and piercing dark eyes. Kit's daughter. Simon's half-sister. Victoria Enright. Antone's message said she was related to the Nasts witch, but distantly, which explained the different spelling of the surname. I was just really glad Antone had given us all the details and that I'd listened to his message about a half-dozen times on our trip or I'd never keep all the relationships straight. I suppose they were about to have the same problem with us. We need to go, Derek said. Everyone, back upstairs, pack your things. W.H. Watt. Simon said. Slow down, Kit said as he reached the landing. Derek towered over him, but moved back so he wasn't looming. They know where we are. This ain't clouds. They've found us. Kit's gaze swung to us, and I stepped forward to explain, but his gaze moved to Chloe and she took over. These kids are from Project Phoenix. They escaped. Maya and her brother, she pointed at me and Ash, their father told them to come here. Doesn't matter, Derek cut in. This ain't clouds know where we are. Which means we need to leave. Now. Hold on, Kit said, raising his hand. Didn't you hear me? Yes, Derek, I did, but Derek. Dr. Fellows called as she descended the stairs. Why don't you go upstairs while we talk? I think that would be best for everyone. From her tone, you'd think she was talking to a misbehaving puppy. Chloe shot her a look. That isn't necessary. We all just need to give Maya and Daniel a minute to explain. She glanced at Derek. please. Derek looked from Chloe to his father, then nodded. Simon brushed past Kit. He gave us a smile, friendly but cautious, and went to stand by his brother and Chloe. You are explaining, right? A voice said. I looked up. It was Victoria, still on the steps, staring at me. Waiting for that explanation, she said. I lifted my brows and turned to Kit. This ain't Clouds know where you are. They've known for months. They're just wearing you down, waiting until something goes wrong or you get tired of running, then they'll pounce. How did they find? Kit began. Not important right now, Derek cut in. She's explained it to us, we'll explain it on the road. The point is that our cover has been blown. Kit moved quickly to the window. They're watching us now. I shook my head. They have someone doing spot checks, but since you've only got one means of escape, your van, that's what they're monitoring. With a tracking device. So now can we leave? Derek said. How? Victoria said, walking down the rest of the steps. Set off on a midnight hike to town? Like that's not going to be noticed. Tori's right, Kit said. If they've been monitoring us for months, there's no need to rush off in a panic. Tomorrow we'll look for the tracking device. If we can't find it, I'll get to town and rent us another van. Then we'll leave. Derek clearly did not like this idea. Neither did Ash. His scowl had deepened more than usual. Daniel looked uncomfortable, which is pretty much how I felt. I might not have been in Derek's mad rush to leave, but I didn't think we should hang around. I looked at Daniel. He glanced at Kit, then shrugged, leaned over, and murmured to me, "It'll be morning soon enough." "Let's go into the living room," Kit said. "I'm sure we have a lot to talk about." I let Daniel tell the story this time. I was too anxious, as I realized how foolish our mission was. These people were never going to negotiate with a cabal. They might even think we were using them to get what we wanted. Were we doing that? We needed Dr. Fellows and, more importantly, Kit B to handle negotiations. They'd both worked for the Edison Group and Mr. B was a lawyer. But it was true that our position was stronger if we brought the Genesis subjects along to sweeten the deal. Daniel didn't mention any of that. Not yet. Instead he stressed that we'd come here for help. We were on our own, separated from our parents. Not helpless. Ash was quick to make that clear, but not naive enough to think we could handle the cabals on our own. That was what he said, handle them. For now, everyone could interpret that as they liked. After that, Kit said we should get some sleep. Anyone who was hungry could help themselves to the kitchen. Otherwise, grab a couch or bunk up with the other kids, and we'd reconvene in the morning. As the others went to look around, I ducked away and waited in the back hall until the last figure left the living room. "Mr. B," I said, stepping out. He turned, saw me, and smiled. "It's Kit. Can I talk to you for a minute?" "Outside." He followed me out the back door to the stoop. I held out the mini recorder. "Calvin Antone gave me this. He's my..." "Well," Daniel explained that. "Anyway, this is what he gave me when we escaped." It was instructions and information and a suggestion. A really detailed suggestion, actually. About how we might all get out of this mess. I added my own ideas at the end. I swallowed. "I don't think you're going to like any of it, and obviously it's totally up to you, but I'm hoping even if you don't agree with what he suggests, you'll help us do it." He looked at the recorder. "We could just talk about it." I shook my head. "Just listen tonight. Please, we can talk in the morning. All right. He took the recorder. When I turned to leave, he stopped me. We will help you, Maya. However we can. Lauren and I were part of all this. The experiments. We take responsibility for that. We'll make sure you're safe now. I thanked him and went back inside. They'd put Chloe in Victoria's room and Haley and I were supposed to sleep there, too, leaving Chloe's bedroom for the guys. Chloe wasn't in Victoria's room, though. She was off with Derek, I guessed. That left me with Haley and Victoria Tori, as everyone called her. She sat cross-legged on her bed, watching us like we were stray cats someone had stuck in her room, strays that were liable to pee on her ankle boots and shed all over her designer jeans. Haley was anxious, and when I tried to calm her down she snapped at me, and Tori made some snarky comment and I decided they'd do just fine if I left them together. I couldn't possibly sleep anyway. When I went downstairs, I'll admit I was looking for Daniel. I shouldn't feel guilty about that. But after what Rafe had said, now even something so simple felt electric with subtext. But all I heard was Kit and Dr. Fellows, talking in lowered voices in the living room. I went into the dining room, opened the curtains, and peered out. I dimly heard the back door open and shut, then soft footsteps, but I paid little attention until a voice said, "Do you see something?" I turned to find Chloe hesitating in the doorway. "Just thinking," I said. "Worried?" "Just thinking of my parents' home." I thought of a segue from there, broaching the topic that would eventually need to be broached. "Is this your home now? On the run, I mean." "I hope not. Where do you plan to go from here?" I paused, then hurried on. "I don't mean your next destination. I'm not fishing. I just mean, what do you do?" "Keep running." She walked in, voice low. "I don't know. I spent most of my life moving around. My dad and I had just settled in one place when all this happened." She shrugged. "I guess I'm hoping it doesn't last much longer. I want a home." She glanced over her shoulder. "I know you do, too, even if you don't like to admit it." I thought she was talking to me. Then Derek stepped into the doorway. "He wasn't eavesdropping," she said to me. "He just doesn't like me being alone with strangers in the house." She aimed a pointed look his way. "Even if I end up rescuing him from danger as often as he rescues me." Chloe waved him over. As she did, someone else poked his head in. "Rafe." "Maya." He looked at the other two, then me. "Can we talk?" "Rather not." He lowered his voice. "Please." "Later," I said. "Just not tonight." "Okay." He nodded and retreated. "Sorry about that," I said when he was gone. Inconveniently timed relationship angst. "Relationship?" Chloe looked from me to the now empty doorway. "You and Rafe?" "Oh, I thought." She trailed off and shook her head. "Never mind." "So you were saying I thought you were with Daniel," Derek cut in. Chloe gave him a look as I inwardly flinched. "We're just really good friends," I said. "We all grew up together." "Well, the Salmon Creek subjects, anyway." "That must have been nice," Chloe said, a touch of wistfulness in her voice. "Not the experiment part, of course, but we didn't know about the experiment. It was just a really good life. They made it that way, we know that now. But even without all the extras, it was a great way to grow up." I turned back to the window as my eyes prickled with tears. "It could drive you nuts," being with the same kids all the time, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Except. I shrugged, still looking out. They made a mistake not telling us. If we'd grown up with it, things might have been different. Us, too, Chloe murmured. I'm not sure it would have fixed all our problems, but I wish I'd known. So all you guys grew up together, then? Well, except Rafe and Ash. I nodded. Speaking of my brother, I should probably check on him. Have either of you seen him? They shook their heads. I said I should go find him and I'd see them in the morning. 41. As I passed the kitchen, I heard someone. I poked my head in. Corey was opening a can of pop with one hand and balancing a slice of cold pizza on the other. Hey, he said. Just in time to keep me from eating alone. No, I'm not hungry, I said, and started to withdraw. He came over before I could disappear. Did you find Daniel? He was looking for you. I muttered that I hadn't seen him and, again, tried to leave. This time Corey swung into my path. Okay, what did I do? He asked. Nothing. I'm just tired. I suspected I was getting the cold shoulder earlier, but with everything going on, I wasn't sure. Now I'm sure. You're giving me the look. What look? The Maya's with Corey look. 50% disappointment, 30% disapproval, 20% exasperation. I've done something you're not happy about. I hesitated, then blurted, Rafe told me what you said about Daniel. He frowned. You're going to need to be a little more specific. In Salmon Creek, when Rafe and I started getting together. You told him to back off because Daniel. I glanced at the open door and lowered my voice. Because Daniel likes me. He swore, then dropped his pizza on the counter and started for the door. I'm going to kill him. I caught the back of his shirt, reached past him, and closed the door. Corey turned. Rafe should not have told you that. He had no right. What was he thinking? So it's true? What you said? His face went still for a moment, then he looked down at me. Do you need to ask that? Really, Maya? I opened my mouth to answer, but it felt like someone was sitting on my chest and I gasped for air. Corey swore, grabbed my arm, and steered me to a chair. Then he pushed me down into it and crouched, face lowering to mine. Breathe, Maya, he said. Just breathe. I scowled as I found my voice. I'm not. Oh, yes you are. You look ready to pass out. Apparently it is a surprise. He swore some more, then shook his head. What a mess. Of all the crappy timing. I'm going to kill him. He didn't mean it. He's just stressed and anxious and he wasn't thinking. Was I defending Rafe? I took a deep breath, then looked at Corey. You shouldn't have said anything to him. Why? I met his gaze. Why? You have to ask. He pulled over a chair and sat down. Yeah, I do. Daniel's my friend, Maya. I've watched him go through over this for 2 years now. Liking you but dating Serena, which was a stupid idea, which I told him many times. Then him finally realizing it was a stupid idea, and torturing himself about dumping her. Which was nothing compared to the torture of having her die, then being trapped between grieving for her and wanting to be with you and knowing there was no way that was happening anytime soon. A year goes by, and I'm pushing him to make his move and I finally convince him to give you a hint, and in strolls Rafael Martinez. Daniel's this close to actually doing something and you decide you're going to date a town boy? After all these years? There was no way I wasn't going to tell Rafe to back off. When he finished, he glanced at me and swore under his breath, reaching over to grasp my shoulder. Breathe, Maya. I shook off his hand. I'm fine. No, you're not. You look like someone hit you in the gut with a sandbag. He sighed. I kept telling myself you knew. You had to know. I looked at him. And what? I was just being a heartless, ignoring it. Course not. I just figured you weren't ready. After Serena and everything. You were playing it cool until you got enough distance. He trailed off. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have found out like this. Not now. Not from Rafe. Not from me. I blame Rafe and I kinda blame Daniel. You know how he is. So worried about doing the right thing. But it's out now and you know, so I hope you're going to do something about it. I looked up at him. Don't look at me like you don't know what I mean. Maybe you aren't as obvious about it as Daniel is, but you can't tell me you don't. The kitchen door opened. Daniel walked in, saw us, and stopped. You guys having a party and forgot to invite me? He went to the counter where the pizza box sat. You better have left some. Corey's gaze swung from me to Daniel. Then he stood. Maya and I were just talking. There's something. I grabbed the back of his shirt and wrenched hard enough for him to stumble. Daniel looked over and frowned. What's up? He asked. We were talking about Haley, I said. Something she said to me in confidence. Can I have a minute with Corey? Sure. Holler when you're done. Daniel left. Still holding Corey's shirt, I stood and moved closer to him. You are not going to tell him, I whispered. He twisted to look at me. Why not? I'm sick of this. It's like being 12 again, dealing with all that drama. I like her. Does she like me? What if she doesn't like me? Except when we were 12, it was us dealing with your drama. I moved closer and lowered my voice even more. Don't do this, Corey. He likes you. You like him. You know you do. Yes, I like him. As a friend. Beyond that. I steeled myself and met Corey's gaze. When I let Serena ask him to the dance, I wasn't ready to date anyone. I just wasn't at the stage. By the time I was, Daniel was off limits. In my mind, he's been off limits ever since. I have no idea how I feel about Daniel. I'm not being coy. I really don't. I'm freaked out and I'm confused, and I'm dealing with so much other crap that there's no way you can expect me to figure out anything right. Now.at this point I couldn't decide whether I want the Hawaiian pizza or the veggie. Veggie. Trust me, you always pick veggie. I shook my head. Even if I did feel something, I wouldn't do anything about it now, would I? Under the circumstances? Kinda more worried about the rest of my life. When he said nothing, I headed for the door. I'll call him back in. Corey shot forward and grabbed my arm. I'll keep my mouth shut on one condition. I looked back at him. Don't punish Daniel over this, he said. Punish. Maybe that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Don't shut him out. Don't run away from him. Don't make things weird. They are weird. But they've been that way for years. Daniel's felt like this forever and he hasn't let it change your friendship. He hasn't interfered with you and other guys. He's been cool about it. You need to be cool about it. He didn't do anything wrong. I know that. Then act like it, okay? I nodded. I opened the door and leaned out. Daniel. He stepped from a room at the end of the hall. All clear. I said yes and started to withdraw, but he motioned me into the hall. I hesitated, then came out. He walked over. Everything okay? He whispered. Sure. I started backing up, but he stopped me. He moved closer and as he did, I stiffened. Exactly what Corey asked me not to do. You, Rafe. You, too, Corey, for starting this. What's wrong? He whispered. I looked up at him and when I did, I saw worry. Worry and concern. Corey was right, if Daniel did feel something for me, then it wasn't new. It was just this Daniel, as he always had been. I leaned against his shoulder, resting my cheek on it. His arms went around me in a hug. Nothing weird. Nothing new. Just a reassuring squeeze. Rough day, huh? He whispered. I nodded as I pulled back. Can we grab pizza and talk about it? Sure. I don't think anyone's getting much sleep tonight. We went into the kitchen. At first it seemed empty and I frowned as I looked at the half-eaten slice on the table. Corey was right here. At a noise to my left, I turned to see Corey on the floor. 42. Daniel and I raced over as Corey rose, rubbing his shoulder and wincing. Okay, he said. How did I end up? He convulsed and retched, spewing the cupboards with half-digested pizza. Really not a cool power, he mumbled as he tried to push up. He went down again, crouching, hands to his head. We took him, one at each arm, and moved him to a cleaner spot in front of the fridge. He sat with his back against it, heaving deep breaths as he winced in pain. Where are your pills? Daniel asked. If I know, Corey said. My bag. Maybe. He swore and doubled over. Just hold on. I'll remember as soon as I can think. He let out a yowl, hands to his head. Breathe, I said. Just breathe. He scowled at me for echoing his words from before, but took deep breaths, chest heaving. When the door banged open, we all jumped. It was Derek, with Chloe right behind him. Derek's gaze shot to Corey, sitting on the floor, us crouched on either side. What? His nose wrinkled and he looked over at the vomit. He's having a vision, I said. That's what happens. Attractive, I know, Corey said between gritted teeth. And now I get new witnesses to my humiliation. Wonderful. We're used to it, Chloe said. Derek used to do that when he changed. Only worse. Thank you for sharing, Derek muttered. She grinned. You're welcome. Chloe grabbed paper towels from the counter. When I realized she was going to clean up, I hurried over, saying, No, I'll get that. You look after your friend, she said as Derek went to help her. I was going to protest again, but Corey doubled over, groaning, and I returned to him. He had his eyes squeezed shut. Trees, he said. I'm seeing trees. Which better not mean we're going to end up in another forest, because I am so sick, he gasped as if hit by another wave of pain. Yep, it's a forest. Trees, trees, and more trees. Deciduous or coniferous? I asked. He opened one eye. English. Leaves or needles? He closed his eyes but didn't flinch or gasp this time, just leaned back against the fridge, as if he was seeing the vision play out behind his eyelids. Mostly leaves. Changing color, like they are here. A pause. I think it is here. I see a mark on one of the big trees. Blue paint. I saw some with that. Chloe nodded, walking back with Derek. It's a woodlet behind us. The owner marked trees for cutting. Corey winced and jerked forward again, eyes squeezed shut. People, he gasped. I see people. In black and camo. There are 2 women. They're doing something. Casting spells, I think. I described the 2 witches we'd seen this St. Cloud one and the Nasts. Corey was seeing both. When I realized that, my stomach plummeted. You led the Nasts here? Derek said. No, Daniel said. Obviously the St. Clouds did. Somehow they knew we were coming here somehow. Derek turned on me. Your father told them. He set this whole thing up. What for? I said. If he wanted the Nasts to know, he'd have told them without sending us here. Let's not do this, Chloe said. If Corey's telling us these people are in our backwoods, we can't sit around flinging blame. No, he's saying they will be there, I said. It's a vision. We don't know that for sure, Daniel murmured. When you were taken, he had a vision of that and, according to Ash, the timing was pretty much dead on. It was happening simultaneously. So there could be people in our backwoods. Derek grabbed Corey's shoulder. What else do you see? Hold on. He closed his eyes. We don't have time to hold on. Tell me what you owe. Corey shoved Derek's hand off his shoulder. That hurt. I'm doing my best here. I didn't mean. Corey silenced him with an angry wave, then rubbed his shoulder with one hand and his temples with the other. I took Corey's elbow, leading him to a chair. Daniel? Can you check his bag? See if you find his meds. I crouched as Corey sat. Did you see anything else? He glowered at Derek. I'm sure I would have if Teen Wolf hadn't tried to dislocate my shoulder. The vision's gone now, and once it's gone, it doesn't come back. Derek mumbled an apology, then went to the window and peered out. Chloe walked up behind him. If anyone is out there, let's not give them a target, okay, she said. We should tell your dad. Right. He paused. Is Liz around? I've been trying to contact her. She turned to us. That's not easy if she isn't here. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. I guess just that we didn't have ghostly help for scouting the situation. Derek strode out the door without so much as a glance our way. Chloe paused to ask if we wanted to come, but I said no. Corey still wasn't feeling well. If Kit wanted to talk to him, we'd be here. Are you sure about that? Corey muttered once they were gone. Chloe is nice enough, but that Derek? Real charmer. If anyone busts through that door, he's liable to throw us to them as cannon fodder. I wasn't sure. I disagreed. Their dad seems okay, he said, but I'm not convinced he takes us seriously. The aunt definitely doesn't. I can't get a read on the brother, but the sister. He rolled his eyes. A bigger diva than Haley. I know, I murmured. As soon as Daniel brings your meds, we'll get Haley, Rafe, and Ash, and if these guys don't decide to run, we will. It's not exactly shaping up to be the partnership I hoped for. Let's focus on the others, not my meds, okay? Corey said. Daniel's right. My last vision seemed to be a glimpse of the present, not the future. I don't want to hang around here hoping this one's different. I agreed and we went to gather our group. We found Ash first. He was in the front foyer, sitting on the floor, as if guarding the door. I wouldn't have noticed him if he hadn't seen me passing and asked if something was up. When I told him what had happened, I think he was almost happy. Relieved, at least. He hadn't wanted to stick around and this gave him the excuse he needed. He said he'd head outside and scout. I tried to stop him, but he ignored me, so I settled for telling him to be careful, which only earned me a disdainful glower. Up to Chloe's room next. We met Daniel in the hall. He had the meds and passed them to Corey, who dry swallowed one as we kept moving to the bedroom. When we walked in, Tori squawked. I don't know how you do things, she said, but around here, the guys knock before they walk into a girl's room. The door was open, Corey said. Wide open. No excuse, Haley said. She was now sitting on Tori's bed, where they must have been chatting away, as if this was a sleepover party. I told them about Corey's vision. And what do you want us to do? Tori said. You? Nothing. Haley? If Mr. B doesn't decide to go, we're leaving. If Kit doesn't decide to go, why would anyone go? Tori said. So she called her father by his first name? I wasn't surprised. Haley glanced at Tori. She's right. He's the grown-up and the cabal expert. That's why we came here. If he doesn't want to leave, I don't see the point. Then I guess you're staying, Corey said. What's going on in here? Said a voice from the doorway. It was Dr. Fellows. As I repeated my explanation, Simon appeared behind her. When I got to the "we may be surrounded by cabal hitmen" part, Simon took off, thundering down the stairs. When I finished, Dr. Fellows said, "And this was a vision you had, Corey?" "Right. Are you sure?" "Hey." She lowered her voice. "Is it possible that Derek influenced this vision of yours?" "What? No. Absolutely not," I said. "Derek's the one who cut it short. Accidentally, but still. And if by influence, you mean talked us into telling a lie to get everyone out tonight, then I don't appreciate the insinuation, drive." Fellows. Her brows shot up to meet her hairline. Tori smirked and leaned back onto her pillow. "Well, Maya, I don't know you yet, so you'll forgive me if I question you. I don't blame you. You don't know us. But you do know Derek and, sorry, but persuasion doesn't seem to be the guy's strong suit." "She has a point, Lauren," Tori said. Dr. Fellows shot her a look, which Tori met with a cool gaze. "Also," Tori said, "I really think you'd know your niece better than that. I wouldn't put it past Derek to lie to get us out of here, but no way would Chloe let him pull others into the scheme." Before Dr. Fellows could answer, Tori turned to me. "I don't doubt tall, dark, and seriously cute had a vision, but I'm still going to wait for Kit's call on this one." "Did she just call me cute?" Corey said. Haley turned on Tori. "Did you just flirt with my boyfriend?" "Boyfriend?" Corey said. "Are you coming?" I asked Corey. "Or staying to flirt back?" "Bossy, isn't she?" Tori said. "Yeah, I think it's hot," Corey said with a grin. Daniel prodded me along before I could retort. Corey fell in beside us and we were at the bedroom door when Ash came running in. He stopped in front of me. "There's definitely someone out there." Tori stood. Don't you think you should tell the person in charge here?" Ash gave her a cold look, then stepped to the left, so he was addressing both me and Daniel. "There's definitely someone out there." "Not really what I meant," Tori said. "Don't really care," Ash said. He caught my sleeve and tugged. "Forget them. We're going. Now." He looked over at Haley. "You coming, Blondie?" She hesitated. Whatever, he said, waving her off as he herded me out the door. Hold up, Haley said, and hurried after us. I really don't think Dr. Fellows called. Really don't care, Ash called back. You guys are definitely related, Corey said as we jogged down the hall. The only difference is that Maya is polite when she's getting in your face. Ash snorted and started to reply. Wait. I skidded to a halt halfway down the steps. Where's Rafe? Already outside, Ash said. I took him scouting. He's standing guard on the porch. Now stop talking and move. 43. I turned left at the bottom of the stairs and headed for the living room. Ash caught the back of my shirt. The exit is this way. Daniel brushed past us. Yes, but we're going to take the extra minute to tell Kit and the others that we're leaving. Fine, go, Ash said. Maya, stay with me. I followed Daniel into the living room. Hey! Ash said. Both of you don't need the back door banged open. Shoes pounded down the hall as Rafe raced in. They're coming, Rafe said. I saw someone around the side of the garage. They shot out the lights on it. Daniel was now in the living room doorway, hands braced on either side as he leaned in, talking fast. Then he jogged back to us. Daniel! Kit shouted. Daniel didn't stop. Kit swung out the door. Hold on. They'll have the house surrounded. There's no place you can run. We're not surrendering, Ash said. No, Chloe said. There's an escape route in the basement. You guys take them down. Kit pushed Derek, Simon, and Chloe toward us. I'll get Tori and Lauren. When Chloe and the guys caught up, they started waving us down the hall. Ash didn't move. Come on, I said. There's a way out. You really think so? He tugged me aside, out of Derek's path. A secret escape in the basement. It's a trap. Why would they? I began. They're going to use us. Lock us in the basement and negotiate with the cabals. We wouldn't do that, Chloe said. Why not? Derek said. It'd work. Really not helping, bro, Simon muttered. I'm being honest, Derek said. It's a good plan. It isn't what we have in mind, but they don't know that. They don't know us. I don't blame them. He looked at Daniel, then me, his gaze shifting between us. It's not a trick. I don't know how to convince you of that, but we can't stand here and argue. Split up, I said quickly. Ash, if you have another idea, you do that with. I hesitated and looked from Rafe to Daniel to Corey. Take me. Guys, the back door window shattered. Something dropped, hissing, on the floor, spinning, smoke swirling out. Gas! Ash yelled. Everyone down. We all dropped. I told them to pull their shirts up over their mouths, and a second canister crashed through a front window, then a third someplace else, only the explosion of glass reaching us. Smoke from the first canister filled the hall. Stairs, I said. Where are they? Fingers clasped my upper arm. It was Chloe, mouth covered, her slitted eyes already tearing up. Daniel reached over and grabbed a handful of my shirt hem. Everyone grab somebody, he called. We're moving. And so we did, a slow, awkward, blind snake crawling along the hallway. Someone bashed into a wall. I told them to move slowly and hold on, and to make sure whoever had them was still holding on. My words came out slurred, and I could feel myself blinking hard, not just against the smoke, but against a numb, floating feeling. It's a sedative, I yelled. Try not to breathe it and try to stay awake. We're almost there. I had no idea if we were really almost there until I felt a rush of cool, clean air. And nearly toppled headfirst down the stairs. Chloe released my arm and I reached back for Daniel, guiding him onto the steps. We crawled down backward. When Corey tried to stand and walk, he lost his balance, woozy from the gas, and fell onto Daniel. Daniel and I managed to get him downstairs with Haley's help. We ended up in almost a heap at the bottom, everyone hunkered down together, sputtering and wheezing. Gas filtered through the open doorway until Derek bringing up the rear closed it and stumbled down the stairs. I lifted my head and peered around. Rafe? Where's Rafe? Derek stepped over us. And where's Simon? No one answered either of us. I sprang up. Derek wheeled toward the stairs. Chloe shot up and grabbed him. Simon was beside me when the gas hit, she said. He said someone should warn your dad. Rafe said he'd go with him. I said no, your dad would be fine, we just needed to get to the basement. Then I couldn't see and I thought he was right there. He went for your father, I said. And Rafe went to help. And neither of you can go after them, Chloe said, jumping into our path when we started for the stairs. She turned to Daniel, arm shooting out as he tried to get around her. None of us can go back. You know you can't. They're fine. Simon can take care of himself and he has Rafe. They'll watch out for each other. I looked at Daniel. He rocked there, gaze on mine, ready to go after Rafe if I gave any sign that that's what I wanted him to do. I took a deep breath. Chloe's right. When Derek hesitated, Chloe said, if you leave, either I go with you and take the same risk or I stay here, with strangers. Without you. He scowled at her. Yes, it's a low blow, she said. But I'll use whatever works right now. She got to her feet, wiped her eyes again, and looked around. Okay, I'm going to suggest we don't wait for Kit and the others. We get out of here before the bad guys break in. I'm guessing that's the plan, knock everyone out with gas, then come in and scoop them up. It's an old nast trick, Ash said. They won't wait long to swoop in, either. As if in reply, booted footsteps thundered across the hardwood overhead. So where's this escape tunnel? Corey asked. It's not really a tunnel, Chloe said as she waved for us to follow. Beyond the basement is a cold cellar for storing vegetables and preserves. There's a chute from the barn. Which is now the garage, I said. She nodded. Kit installed a fire escape ladder. That's why we rented this place. She pulled open a door on the far side of the basement, then reached in and pulled a string. A bare bulb lit a corridor with cement walls and a dirt floor. She waved us in. Yeah, right. Ash caught my arm before I could walk in, then pointed at Chloe. You first. Derek muttered something and shoved past. He headed into the dimly lit hall. We followed. The hallway passed a couple of rooms that must have been for storage at one time, the wooden shelves now rotting and dotted with dusty jars filled with grey preserves. The hall ended at a rope ladder. Derek gave it a tug, then went up first. When I tried to follow, Ash elbowed me aside and cautiously ascended, peering through at the top before waving us up. We came out in the barn/garage, as Chloe had said. Derek motioned for silence. I peered around. It was nearly pitch black, the only light coming through a break in the roof. But after being in the cold cellar, my eyes had adjusted. When I could make out a ladder leading to the hayloft, I tapped Derek's arm, figuring he'd have better night vision than Chloe. I pointed to the ladder and mouthed safe. He nodded and led us over to it. We went up. At the top, moldering straw covered the floor. I could smell feces. Cat or rat, I wasn't sure. I just kept my ears attuned for squeaks or hisses as we cleared spots and hunkered down. Outside, all was silent. Or so it seemed, until we quieted down and I could pick up the distant murmur of voices. Then one grew louder. I want to speak to Dr. Inglis. It was Dr. Fellows. Are you listening? An outraged squawk, then muffled cries, as if someone had gagged her. Derek winced. He shot a glance toward Chloe, but she didn't seem to have heard. He cast a glower at me, as if warning me not to tell her that her aunt had been taken. I wasn't about to. A minute later, when I caught a noise below, I shot up, but Derek waved me down and went to the stairs. He leaned out. Then he climbed down a few stairs. A moment later he returned. Kit followed him. As Kit surveyed our faces, Derek headed back down a few steps to look around below. Then, almost simultaneously, they whispered, "Where's Simon?" The next few minutes were a flurry of whispers and worries as they each realized Simon wasn't with the other one. Then I caught his voice in the distance. Derek heard it, too. He told Kit. They whispered together, but there was nothing anyone could do. The cabals had drive. Fellows, Tori, Rafe, and Simon. They aren't going to hurt your son, Haley said. Rafe left his sister with them. Kit looked ill, but managed to nod. Yes. They won't hurt him. Not if they hope to convince us to rejoin the fold. Derek snorted. Like that would ever happen. Kit said nothing. But Derek's head whipped around to face his father. Dad, he said. Simon will be fine, he said. But if we hope to end this on our terms, we need to get everyone else out of here. 44 They've got the house surrounded, Ash said. I looked over to see him perched on a rafter near Haley. House, but not barn, he said. But that still means they're very close. Which means we need to revert to our favorite ploy, Daniel murmured. Divert their attention away from the barn so we can get out. Is there a back door? There is, I said. I saw it when we came in. But I vote for the aerial route if we can. The trees come up to the roof line, right? They do, Ash said. And there's a busted out window back there. A decent branch comes close enough to grab. That was gonna be my suggestion. I looked over at the others. Anyone have tree climbing issues? Obviously Ash and I didn't. Daniel, Haley, and Corey said they'd be fine. Chloe hoped she had gymnastics training. Mr. B joked that it would be his first time in a couple of decades. Derek said nothing. Derek. It looks like I'll be the guy doing the distracting. I'm not trusting a tree branch to hold me. You're not playing decoy, Chloe said. She turned to us. I'm sorry. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but he really can't. The last time we were in a fight against the St. Clouds, the orders were to trank all of us except Derek. For him, it was shoot to kill. They don't trust werewolves. I think they've calmed down, Derek said. They've been watching us for months and haven't tried to assassinate me yet. Chloe put her hands on her hips. And that's your definition of acceptance? Not going out of their way to kill you. You're both right, Kit said. I do believe they've realized Derek isn't the threat they expected, but I also don't trust them not to use excessive force. He's not going out there, Daniel said. When I suggested that, I meant I'd do it. What? I said. That's commendable, Daniel, Mr. B said. But we do need to maintain our strongest negotiating position. According to what Antone says, you and Maya are the most valuable subjects. You're both clearly successes. Negotiating position. Derek said. I'll play decoy, Corey said. Done it before. Got away, too. That's a good sign. Kit shook his head. We need you, too. The Cabals may not realize it, but you're also a success, if you're seeing visions. I'll go. You can't, either, I said. You're the lawyer. We need you to negotiate. There's that word again, Derek muttered. Ash dropped from the rafters. Can we all stop falling on our swords and actually do something? Another couple minutes and those witches will cast their sensing spell and figure out where we're hiding. So you're volunteering to do it? Corey asked. Ash met his gaze. No, I'm not. Anyone has a problem with that? Too bad. Well, I guess Blondie is playing decoy, Haley said, trying for a smile. Daniel stepped forward. No. You've already done that once. And I was pretty good at it, wasn't I? Face it, I'm an excellent actor. No, Daniel said. There's enough bargaining power here. This is my turn. You stay. Help Maya. Fight the good fight. Blah blah. Personally, I didn't mind being captured. Hot food. Hot showers. I'm not really cut out for this running around stuff. Haley headed toward the ladder. When Daniel went after her, Derek caught his arm and yanked so hard that Daniel flew off his feet. Hey! Daniel said, twisting in Derek's grip. Derek just stood there, impassive. As Daniel struggled, Corey stepped in front of him. Time to let someone else be the big hero. We need you here. Haley's gone, Ash said. So how about we go, too? Before she distracts everyone for no reason. Ash led the way and we crawled out across the rafters. Behind me Derek balked, but Chloe urged him on and his dad told him to just take another rafter if he was worried. He did. I don't think Derek's weight would have made much difference. There were 6 of us, putting about 800 pounds of weight on a very old piece of wood. When it creaked, I swung over to the one Derek was using. Ash picked up speed and got to the window first. Daniel helped him clear the glass. Then Ash leaned out, peering into the night. When he gave the all clear, we started through. Ash went first, with me right behind. Daniel stood watch and made sure we waited our turn so we didn't overburden the branch. As we crawled out, I could hear a commotion to the left, Haley running through the woods, making enough racket to be a half-dozen of us. Somewhere below, a shadow tore after her. As Haley crashed through the trees, we continued along. Ash and I swung to the next tree. Daniel followed. So did Chloe. Corey almost missed, but made it. Mr. B didn't try, just whispered for us to go ahead, spread out, and he and Derek would get on the ground as soon as they could, and travel that way. At the next tree, I decided we should split up, Chloe and Corey taking the easy route. Daniel, Ash, and I crossed another tree, then another. Okay, Ash whispered. We're spread out enough. Time to go. His gaze shot to the side. Before I could look, he knocked me so hard that I'd have fallen if Daniel hadn't grabbed me. Something hit Ash in the shoulder. He toppled. We tried to grab him, but he was a dead weight, and he fell from our hands, tumbling down, striking one branch before hitting the ground. When I tried to go after him, Daniel caught me. I swiped at him, but he held me firm. "It's a tranq dart, Maya," he said. "I don't care." Daniel clapped a hand to my mouth as a dark-suited figure slipped from the trees and crouched beside Ash's sprawled body. The figure pressed a hand to his neck and nodded. Daniel tugged me up and motioned to the branch above. I hesitated. Then another figure joined the first below, both armed, and I realized any rescue would turn into a group capture. So, after one last look down, I steeled myself and escaped with Daniel. 45. Daniel and I moved carefully, crossing to the next tree, then waiting there until they finished scanning the treetops and decided Ash had been alone. They carried him away and we continued on. Now and then I'd hear a tree limb creak, but that was it. Then I caught the faint sound of footfalls on the ground. When I peered over, I could make out the pale shape of faces moving in the forest. 2 of them. I squinted. "Derek and Kit," I whispered. Daniel nodded. We were about to head away from them when I heard the crackle of undergrowth. Derek froze, then yanked Kit down. Their faces vanished, their dark clothing blending into the night. Daniel and I watched as 2 figures stepped through a cluster of trees. Men dressed in camouflage gear, carrying rifles. Tranquilizer rifles, I hoped. They were heading straight for where Derek and Kit were hiding. I tensed, but they just kept looking around, not calling for backup, unaware of how close Derek and Kit were. Daniel had tensed, too. His jaw worked, as if he instinctively wanted to use his shout. Of course he couldn't invoke his power, and every Cabal guy within a kilometer radius would come running. I laid my hand on his. "It's okay. Derek knows they're there." Daniel nodded and rubbed my thumb. I looked down at my hand on his. There was a time, not long ago, when I wouldn't have done that. Rafe was right. Something had changed, and I don't think either Daniel or I had even realized that. It was the little things, like this, reaching out to reassure each other, the chaos giving us an excuse. I leaned down to focus on the men below. If they walked under us, we could have leaped on them. They didn't. But they were still heading straight for Derek. Pounced, slamming one guy to the ground before his partner had time to react. I heard a sizzle, and a bolt like lightning flew from Kit's fingers. The other guy stumbled back. Kit took him down with a right hook. Beside him, Derek let out a hiss of pain. I didn't see what had happened. Presumably his opponent used his supernatural powers. Derek flipped his target onto his stomach and pinned him there as Kit fought with his. At a thump from below, I glanced over to see that the spot beside me was empty. Daniel was on the ground, running toward them. He grabbed the guns and threw them aside, then helped Kit subdue his target. As the fight ended, I crawled closer. I stayed in the tree, though, where I had a better vantage point if anyone else came. They had just gotten both men secured when Corey tore from the woods. "I missed the fight," he whispered. Derek wheeled on him. "Where's Chloe?" "You were supposed to be." "I'm right here," whispered Chloe as she stepped through. I inched along until I was nearly over them. Daniel noticed me first and nodded. Kit crouched to take a radio from one man. I realized they were unconscious. Knocked out or tranquilized? Daniel bent to take the other radio. "Guns?" Corey asked. "Just take the darts," Kit whispered. "Is it okay if I stay grounded?" Corey asked. "The monkey route really isn't my thing." Kit said it seemed safe enough now, and asked Daniel if he'd stay down, too, keeping the fighters on the ground. Daniel glanced up at me, just a quick check. I nodded. "I'm staying here," I whispered down. "I'll keep an aerial eye out for trouble." "I'll come with you," Chloe said. Derek tried to stop her. She said it made sense for her to be in the trees with me in case of a ground attack, and that convinced him. Not that it mattered, I think she'd have done what she wanted. She obviously didn't take his crap. Still, it would drive me crazy, constantly needing to remind my boyfriend that I could handle myself just fine. My brother was bad enough. Chloe climbed up and we set off. The guys broke into pairs to get a little distance from one another, so there weren't four of them tromping together. They stayed close enough to keep an ear on the others in case they needed help. Chloe and I followed from the trees. As we moved, I could hear the distant noise of the searchers, but none got close again. I kept an ear out for Haley, hoping she might have avoided capture, but there was no sound or sign of her, and I knew she'd been taken. Finally, Derek led us to a spot he'd picked on the edge of the woodlet. There was a house just past the tree line. It was dark, everyone gone or asleep. Chloe and I climbed down and found Kit easing open the door on a pickup. "We'll take this," he said. "Boys, get up front and push when I give the signal. We're going to roll it out of the drive, then I'll get it started. Everyone can pile in the back while I do that." Corey looked over sharply. Kit was stealing the truck? I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He'd been on the run for years, he'd do whatever it took to get his kids out of here. Daniel didn't seem shocked at all. He's all for law and order unless it interferes with common sense and necessity. When Kit released the brake, the guys rolled the pickup out of the drive. With Derek's super strength it was easily done, and Kit decided to have them keep pushing from the rear now down to the first side road. He got around the corner, then we crawled into the truck bed and lay down while he hot-wired it. Within minutes we were off, leaving the cabals behind. We drove for 2 hours, then ditched the truck a couple of kilometers from a roadside motel and walked back to that motel. Mr. B checked in while we hid. Then we made our way in twos to the room. Mr. B left to make a call on the prepaid cell he'd picked up in the first major town. He was calling Calvin Antone to begin the process of negotiation. On the car ride, he'd told Derek and Chloe about Antone's suggestion. To my surprise, it was Chloe who'd protested, while Derek just sat there, processing. Chloe was worried about how the cabal treated werewolves. Beyond that, though, she wasn't personally averse to the idea. They'd been running for months and had all come to realize there was no foreseeable end to that running. They'd talked about moving to Australia, but no one was particularly keen on that. Even if they made it there, it would involve more hiding and more lying. It wasn't hard for Kit to convince Chloe that he'd never take any step that would endanger Derek. He'd uprooted his life a decade ago and spent the intervening years on the road to protect him. Now Derek had come fully into his powers and he was, by any standard, a success. Chloe's own powers had apparently gotten off to a rough start, but she was also a Project Genesis success. Same went for Tori. They'd all learned to control any side effects and were superpowered supernaturals, which made them valuable. Simon wasn't showing the same power boost, but he hadn't displayed any negative issues, either just a smooth transition into a supernatural. Still, the Nasts had been the ones to kidnap Kit and hold him captive for months. He seemed remarkably unconcerned about that. It was business, he said. He'd been part of a top-secret science group and the Nasts wanted to know more about it. His imprisonment had been more like house arrest. The worst part of it had been worrying about his boys, but he couldn't ask the Nasts to check on them without, in effect, handing them over, so he'd had to trust they were safe while he worked on getting free. When he was released, it was actually Masha's Nast who'd helped. The same Masha's Nast now heading the work in Vancouver. Not a nice guy, Kit admitted, but Nast was a businessman, inclined to be reasonable if it helped him climb the corporate ladder. Bringing us all to the fold would certainly do that. No one was forgetting what the Edison Group did to Liz Delaney and a couple of other subjects. Not forgetting. Not forgiving. But the people who'd done that, Dr. Davidoff and others, were dead. That knee-jerk reaction to problems seemed to have died with them. And it wasn't the St. Clouds we hoped to deal with anyway. As nasty as the Nasts were, Kit felt he could work with them. At least for a few years, long enough for us to grow up into the kind of powerful supernaturals they wanted, and use those very skills to fight back. Is fighting back what Antone expected? He'd never said it, but he'd hinted that he didn't expect us to grow up to be Cabal wage slaves. Just let the Cabal take care of us until we were old enough to take care of ourselves. Maybe that meant fighting back. Maybe it just meant breaking away safely. Either way, it was freedom, something we had no shot at otherwise. All this wasn't to say we could trust the Cabals. We couldn't. But Antone had provided a detailed proposal for negotiations, and Kit thought it was workable. First, though, Kit needed to speak to Antone. So he did that. When he came back almost an hour later, he said only that he needed to wait for a call. That came 20 minutes later. He took it outside and returned to say a preliminary negotiation meeting had been arranged. It would be tomorrow in Buffalo, where their ordeal had begun, and he would attend alone while we stayed here in Pennsylvania. While Kit had been doing all that, Chloe had managed to make contact with Liz again, and she was outside, patrolling. That let us relax a little. You can't beat an invisible guard. Though we'd napped in the truck, everyone was exhausted. Kit said he'd stay awake and make a few calls while we got some sleep. The rest of the audiobook will be continued in the next episode. Join us on Patreon for early access or more great audiobooks. A link is provided in the video description.